Let's go ahead and transition to Bitcoin, falling 19% in the past month and hovering near year-to-date lows. Our next guest, however, says the bottom may be in here. Robert Sluymer, he's the head of technical research at Fundstrat Global Advisors. He joins us now on the phone. Robert, great to have you.
Hey, thanks, Jackie. Great to be here.
All right, so let's dig into this because your argument is a little tough to sell here. You've got a chart that says Bitcoin has begun this bottoming process, and, you know, I mean, some would argue, well, it keeps setting new bottoms.
Well, that's fair enough. I mean, if we really take a look at the chart, I think there's a couple things worth noting. First of all, there's a trend line, or at least a support line, that goes all the way back to the fourth quarter of last year, touches the low in February, and again touches the low in April. And just this week, Bitcoin's managed to bounce off that level around 7,000. So that's certainly the first step in a bottoming process, to see some sort of consolidation or basing taking hold. If we look at the momentum indicators, they're fairly simplistic, but they do tend to track these multi-week shifts in cryptocurrency. So that RSI indicator in the bottom of the chart is very oversold and starting to bottom. So that's really the part of that bottoming phase taking hold. Now, the next thing that has to happen is to see Bitcoin actually rally through the downtrend. And we use the 15-day moving average. It's very simplistic, but it's a pretty good proxy across most markets, most securities, as a proxy for trend. That's around, call it 7,800. That'll be the next hurdle for it to get through. But overall, when we step back, we see the first phase starting to happen. We think Bitcoin's starting to bottom off some very key support around 7,000, and we think it's going to start a recovery process here. We'll see if it does or not, but that's our call. We think the setup is very attractive here. If you're short, we think you should be very careful and reducing your short exposure. And I think if you're looking to be long, this is where you start adding to your long exposure.
All right. The naysayers regarding Bitcoin would say, listen, there's a lot more regulation to come, and central banks simply are not going to allow another currency to sort of, mix and flood the marketplace. And that would indicate that prices really should go lower here. What would you say to that?
Well, those are certainly good fundamental arguments. I can't really argue with those. However, I do think that there's an awful lot of bad news priced into Bitcoin. I'm not sure it's going to replace other fiat currencies as a currency, but as a store of value, it certainly looks interesting. But I think the real key point is when you look at all these tokens, whether it's the alts or Bitcoin, they trade very well off of technicals. And so from a risk-reward standpoint, they're very volatile. It's not for everybody, obviously. It's not for widows and orphans. Should be a small percentage of every portfolio. But at current levels, if you're a tactical trader, I think this is a terrific entry point from a risk-reward standpoint. You know, potentially 30% upside can get you back to the recent highs around 9,800.
All right, Jim, jump in.
Robert, do you think there's a relationship between Bitcoin and gold? Has Bitcoin taken away some of gold's former role as being a store of value, particularly in difficult times?
Boy, it's a great question. There certainly is a lot of debate around that. I'm not sure we can draw any quantitative analysis, and I certainly can't see it from a technical standpoint. The patterns are very different. It's not as though one is benefiting at the expense of others. But that's certainly a debate out there, and I do think that incrementally people are using Bitcoin as a store of value.
Jeff?
Hey, Robert, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you providing the perspective on Bitcoin. And I agree with your forecast. I am bullish on cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin, for the rest of 2018. But, however, I got to play the devil advocate, the other side. As we're in this bottoming phase you're speaking about, what is the capitulation component? What is that ironclad floor level that you see Bitcoin? You're going to see all the institutions, all the folks come out and buy. What is that capitulation number?
Boy, I'm not sure. I think we may have seen that in February on that 6,500 level. I think that was certainly a high volume low. And to be very honest about it, Jim, we don't know if all the selling is done. We can only really look at the pattern that's developing right here, right now. Gauge it or judge it from a technical standpoint. Is the risk reward favorable? I'd rather be long here with stops very close to the lows that we just put in than waiting for the entire trend to reverse for Bitcoin to get above 10,000, where my downside or my risk reward becomes a lot less attractive. So again, technically and trading it from a technical standpoint, I think the risk reward's really appealing here.
All right, Robert, thank you so much. Great to talk to you today.
Thanks, guys.
We'll talk to you soon. Trading Bitcoin futures for us, Jim. You have the trade. So what is it? Levels?
Yes. Yes, and I'm no long-term lover of Bitcoin. I'm not even sure it's going to fit in, 10 years down the road. But I do like the chart as well. And if it trades 77.50, which is a couple $100 from where it is right now, to me that'll look like the current downtrend is broken. I think that's a spot to get long with a target of 85.50 on the upside. If subsequently it trades below 72.50, that's where I'd place my stop. Like I said, price dictates short-term trades much more than the fundamentals do. I still think the fundamentals are lined up against Bitcoin long-term, but that doesn't mean it can't have significant price pops in the meantime.
Jeff, that seems to be, at least, while Robert's view was that, longer-term Bitcoin is going to go higher, and there may be some volatility, that you will see these short-term pops higher. So can you get behind this trade?
I like this trade. I can, and the reason I like it, again, it's a buy-in stop, right? So in order for him to get long, we have to trade up a couple $100 to his point. And remember, this is the CBOE contract, so it's 1 coin, not the CME, which is 5 coin. But it's important to see that momentum kind of move to his trade. However, if Robert's right and we're still in a phase, that bottoming phase, it's just going to chop around that, and test that 72.50. He's not in the trade. So I think it's important to understand the way he's playing momentum.
There's one thing, Jackie, is that a lot of people don't understand on Twitter. A lot of the ways I trade and look at markets is to see some momentum first.
Twitter.
They maybe just don't like me on Twitter. Is that to stop in on strength of a long position and stop short on weakness. And that, to me, is that you see the momentum going first, and then you jump on in instead of trying to pick bottoms.
And then one more reason, Jackie, where I like the short term at this level here, it's attractive. You're seeing a lot of institutions, they've been trying to implement their investment statement policies to buy cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin. Well, now it's all of a sudden we're almost in Q3, so a lot of those initiatives that were Q4 of 2017, they're happening now. So more and more institutions are able to get allocations or exposure to cryptocurrencies, and they're only long.
The last thing, too, is if it goes above 8,000, this might be one of the kind of trades we modify on Twitter, because it could have a lot more legs to the upside. I could easily see it bounce up to 9,950. Once it begins to get that momentum. So this is one that's going to cause you to be nimble, in my opinion.
And that's a shameless plug to follow him on Twitter.
Shameless plug. Follow me on Twitter.
All right. Let's get the risk reward on this one. Jim buying the CBOE Bitcoin futures, 77.50. He's targeting a move up to 85.50. Each contract, 7,750. So risking 500 to make 800 on this trade.